But you never know that you could. And when you feel that way, ain't it good, good dancing in the red and gold. Dancing in the red and gold.
What's up, Faithful? Welcome to the 49er Faithful UK Live. As always, I'm your host, Paul Hope, and on today's show, we will be reviewing the 49er draft from 2017 through to 2020. As we are officially in draft season, we wanted to do something a little different before our live mock draft show, which will be coming very soon. Lee Gowland has some breaking news about how many mock drafts he has or hasn't done, but we'll get to that in a moment. Now, due to our free agency business, some of the faithful appear to be concerned heading into this draft. So we wanted to take a look back at how John and Kyle have done in previous years. But there's a lot to cover, so we've decided to split this into two shows. So next week we'll be looking at 2021 through to 2024. But before we get into all that, and much, much more, smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and drop a message into the chat so we know we're not just talking to ourselves. Now, I couldn't do all this on my own, and I am delighted to welcome to today's show everyone's favourite. It is, of course, Naji Kara.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. And, haha, she's here.
Back for a second appearance. I like it, Naji. Next up, the man with the most thankless job in sports entertainment. It is, of course, Mr. Gareth Ellis.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Good to see you, boys.
And last but not least, it is, of course, our grand champion, El Presidente, Lee Gowland.
Stop prompting
Now
him.
then, fellas. Paul, you've got us worried. I've went and done all my prep to grade this year's draft. I thought that's what we were doing.
Now.
All right. Did I read that wrong?
Given
You
that
did.
you've done this beautiful graphically, we know that you've done your homework. So,
Well.
no jokes aside.
Shall we,
I would use that term lightly.
before we jump in, there's been a couple of news since we last recorded last week. Should we talk about that briefly? If we can do that. That's not going to happen.
Yes.
but
So
briefly.
didn't we sign somebody older than me?
Yeah,
What was he, 56, 57?
something like that. The oldest center in the world. Well, not center. Long snapper.
Long snapper.
Yeah, long snapper. Yeah, Tabor's gone.
Yeah,
A
sad.
bit sad, but
Yeah.
also I just wanted to touch on a couple of moves we made. We don't obviously they don't break the bank or anything. It's not big highlights, but we've signed a lot of players for special team sole purposes, and I really
Yeah.
like it because there's kind of at least a goal in the vision and something's happening, which is great because I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. I know I'm not going to jinx it. We are not going to be worse than we were last year, this year on spec.
Yeah.
We're going to be
He's not going to
just
jinx it.
but
I
like-
remember Robbie Gold.
Yeah. But so new long snapper, which is obviously is big for Moody, I think. It's also big for Wish if he's back with us, with his back and all that. We'll see what happens. But I like the fact that the coaches come in and put a couple of moves together and something's happening. There's at least something happening. That's perfect.
So do you think it was a performance issue with Tabor Pepper rather than just a financial reason?
I don't know. I mean, the guy's clearly. What I think is the guy's got a system. He's got an idea of what he wants to do, and those players fit that system. I think that's what's happened, and Tabor
Right.
didn't. Tabor was always kind of on the lean side for long snapper. The guy we signed
Yeah.
is a bit more of a lineman type long snapper, so maybe more of a blocking, more less than chasing. I don't know, but that's what it screams to me. Scheme and maybe people he's worked before with and he can trust. Is
Well,
that-
interesting you say that, Naji, because Pepper has released some video footage on his social media of him snapping the ball and then getting into the blocking position. And I thought that was a bit strange. I think he released it either this afternoon or yesterday, as if he's kind of advertising. That might be the feedback he's been given. That's the direction we're going. I think financially, Lee, Carl Juszczyk has come out and said the Niners were very honest about the financial constraints. I don't think we've saved much, but every dollar counts, for want of a better word. And as Najee said, maybe it's just Kyle Shanahan saying, yep, you can do whatever you want with special teams, but I've seen Brad Graham is looking for a new nickname for our special teams because everyone's excitedly that we might have the Avengers of special teams. So maybe, Faithful, if you're watching, drop your nickname in the chat and we'll see whether we can get that going viral.
Not as
That's
bad
it.
as last year. That
Yeah,
could be
yeah,
the
right.
name.
I mean, that center's called John Wick, so because the S is silent, so that is canon, by the way. It's
We had
Good.
some fun in Discord with that. Sorry, Gareth. I know I see no, it's Nanji.
Good to see Juice back though. That hurt, and it's great to
I
see
was,
him
I was
back.
gonna
Yeah.
make a joke about this new player, and we're gonna have to find him a nickname because we just signed them, not re-signed them.
Sorry, I've ruined it.
It's alright. No, it's good that Juice is back. It's weird though. I really want some.
Thank you, Mrs. Yuschek.
Yeah,
There's a lesson
Yes.
here, gents.
Yes.
Keep your lady happy.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Happy wife, happy life.
That's right. But yeah, no, it's
Oh.
good. But yeah, I would like to have the lowdown on what's happened exactly. If it's a money thing and Juice coming back. And
So
saying, "All right."
apparently they asked them to take another pay cut
Yeah,
because they asked him to take one last year and he wasn't too happy about it. And this time he must have said no. Tested free agency because he obviously went out to Pittsburgh, spoke to them. And as Gareth said, I think Kristen's twisted his arm and said, look, I'm happy in California. I'm happy in San
California,
Francisco. The difference between the two offers is next to nothing. Let's stay in San Francisco. I think that's what's happened.
yeah, that's good. I mean, I talked about how we might see a new offense and everything, and that's why we didn't need Juice a week ago, and now I'm a fool. It's good to have him. He's a good player. And the kids' whole relationship and CMC, that city video they did, all that kind of stuff. It's just good for the team. How happy he's back.
Well, Gav will be happy because his whole Twitter, Lee, Notorious Gav, who we met up in Leeds, his whole Twitter handle was about Juice and being the Juice fan club. So he
Yeah.
had a weird 48 hours. But like you said, Gareth, I don't know what jersey number he'll wear. And the photo edits, I've seen all the content creators sharing of Juice. He looks great in the red and gold. But
He does.
as you said, Nadji, we recorded a week ago. We're supposed to be in the off season, and the news keeps breaking. I'm pretty sure the Tabor Pepper news broke quite late again. And I woke up to some messages from Lee saying, cancel a jersey order. Mr. Hall's not going to be very happy. And it has been nice to see the faithful show him the love on social media. But as we said at the start of the show, some of the faithful seem to be worried heading into this draft. We have 11 draft picks, and we do seem to have a lot of gaps to plug into the roster. So this was your idea, Nadji. You wanted to go back and look at the draft classes and see what have we got to look forward to. Have they learnt the lesson? Do you think we can hit all 11 picks? And we've decided to go right back to the 2017 NFL drafts. We had 10 total selections, beginning with the coveted number 2 pick overall. Now, Lee, you've made a great graphic there, but before you put that, well, I said before you put that on the screen, we did have the number 2 pick. Now, some people will say, hang on a minute, we took Thomas at number 3, but we traded out of that pick. Now, obviously, there was a lot of hype of Shanahan taking over. There was a lot of quarterbacks in this draft. Now, I can't remember my draft crush from that year. And I'm going to go to you first, Gareth, and put you on the spot. Heading into this draft, did you have any particular player in mind that you wanted us to take in the top 2 picks?
I didn't. I think it was that entire the team from the previous 2 seasons has got to go. Shanahan's the new guy in. I think he made it very clear on day one that a lot of the existing roster was not going to come back. And I think that it was a good place to start. You had a completely blank slate. I think it was obvious. I think, again, they'd set out that they wanted to build probably the defensive line first. And I think most people had us picking that defensive line first as well. It'll always be that you missed on Mahomes' draft, but I still think not taking a quarterback at that point in the rebuild was the right decision. It's only hindsight that everybody looks stupid. So I don't remember. No, not anyone in particular. I was happy for the team. It was like we're going to have roster spaces at every single position, except probably left tackle. I think with Staley was staying, and probably Buckner and Armstead, and that was about it. I think that we were 100% sure we're going to be in the team.
What about you, Nadji? I mean, obviously Lee had his Stanford pick there, top of the screen. You know, he likes that
Ah,
connection.
that wasn't my pick. I didn't want us to take Solomon Thomas. But go on, Najee. Your
I
question, mate.
honestly can't remember. I remember feeling. I think Gareth said it really well there. It's just the team was so bad the previous years, and we needed so much. I think anything that we were going to pick was going to help the team no matter what. And if you look at this draft and you see, D-line, linebacker, corner, quarterback, running back, tight end, wide receiver, it's basically an entire team. We've picked every single position you can possibly think of. And there was a reason for that. We were pretty poor and we needed help everywhere. And I think it was a case of, I mean, you don't pick number 2 if you have a good season unless you manage to trade and get lucky, kind of thing. But yeah, I honestly cannot remember what I would have liked.
It's a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, but I think going the end and pass rusher was kind of the right move because we just didn't have anything. And obviously 2020 is insight is everything, but didn't pan out the way we wanted. Although, if we look at who's in the league still in that draft, he is. So he's definitely a good player, Solomon Thomas. But yeah, I can't remember. I can't remember if I was happy with it either. I think it was a bit underwhelming. The trade was amazing. That was really funny. I remember that. Fleeced the Bears for an extra pick or 2 for absolutely no reason because they thought we were going to take Trubisky at number 2, and that was really well played by John, I think.
So, Lee, you let the cat out of the bag that Thomas wasn't your pick heading into this
No, he
draft.
wasn't.
Stanford man and all that.
Yeah, so I had somebody else in mind that I thought was going to be a generational player. And funnily enough, when that trade happened, I actually thought the Bears were moving up in the second to actually take this player that I wanted, but they didn't. So I was over the moon because I thought that's it. We're going to get him at number 3 instead of number 2. And then we drafted Solomon Thomas. And I've got to say, I remember this draft because I actually felt physically sick. I wanted this other player so much. I thought he was going to make a difference to the 49ers. And I've been proved right recently. Because the player I wanted was Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
I'd seen him play a couple of years before for Stanford against Notre Dame, and he was just a different class to everybody else. And I think he ended up getting drafted
8th.
8th, was it?
8th, yeah.
Yeah.
Number 8.
So I know
absolutely good we didn't get him.
Well, good things come to us that way. Yeah, I mean, like you said, Gareth, it's forever known by most teams around the NFL as the Patrick Mahomes draft, but you said it quite well at the start. And I think, wasn't there a talk, chaps, before we move off the Thomas pick, that this was Lynch's pick? Shanahan kind of said, you can have that pick, kind of part of their agreement, because I think Ty Alston's put it in the chat there. There are a lot of rumours there that we were banking on Kirk Cousins. So this was the rebuild.
Yeah, that's true.
The big talk was we were going to get him in free agency. And as Michael said there, that was the rumour. So I think you said, Gareth, that you didn't want to go down this list and just talk about every single player. So
some of them.
So before we move off Solomon Thomas, what I will say, yes, I wasn't particularly happy with the pick. And I know you talk to any 49er fans and they'll say he was a bust. I don't think he's a bad player. I think it was a bad pick, but he's not a bad player. He was very good in the run game. Well, when I say very good,
well,
he was good enough in the run game.
Did he move to D tackle? Is he a tackle?
Well, that's where he played. That's where he played for Stanford, defensive tackle. He didn't play defensive end. Yeah, so I was quite surprised that the first 3 seasons or the first 2 seasons we played him at defensive end, and then obviously once we drafted Bosa, then they moved him inside to his normal position, and that's when he started to play a lot better, especially against the run, which is what he used to do at Stanford. Yeah,
a bit of a weird position pick for sure, especially that we had Buckner, we had Armstead, which obviously were very good together. So
maybe it's that best player available doesn't always fit.
No, that's true. I just had a look at the draft, and I remember who I wanted. I wanted us to pick Jamal Adams, but So, of course. Yeah, I mean, let's talk about who we. Because I wanted us to rate the whole draft, and obviously when you see Josh Kittle's name on this list, you're like, well, I mean, we've nailed that draft. But go on, Paul, you go first. What would you rate this? So we went American style, UK style ranking from F to A+++, or whatever you want to call it. What would you say this one comes in at?
I think overall for me, I would give this a C plus. The draft class itself, you look at all the names on there, it was marred by underperformance, off the field issues. But as you said, Najee, George Kittle stands out as one of the best tight ends in the league. The class had some hits and misses. And I think, like you said, Lee, Solomon Thomas got judged harshly because he was a number 3 pick. But he was a solid NFL player, but he wasn't that elite game changer you expect when you're picking at that end of the draft. But it didn't provide the same long-term impact as some of the other drafts that we're going to talk about tonight. Adrian Colbert is someone that I was a fan of. I've got some signed merch of his. DJ Jones wasn't a bad player. Obviously, Joe Williams is a name everyone thinks, no, Kyle, why did you trade up for him? But overall, I'm going to give this one a C+. Might be being a bit optimistic, but that's my answer to your question, Najee.
Fair enough. People in the chat, let us know what you think of this draft, and we can see where you guys think. Go on, Lee. Give us your rating.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go for a B+ because we had quite a few starters on there. Solomon Thomas, Reuben Foster, Witherspoon, Beth Hart, he did start. Trent Taylor, DJ Jones. I think Adrian Colbert started for a while as well. So I think you got plenty of starters in there. And then if you look at the quality of some of them, George Kittle, perennial All-Pro. I mean, you can't go wrong there. DJ Jones, he was massive. He was a great pick at that particular spot.
Especially for 6, yeah.
Akello Witherspoon, he had a couple of good seasons, and I know I slated him on this pod time and time again. I used to always say you'd get 3 good games out of him a season and then he'd go missing. But Reuben Foster, as a player, he was excellent. Off the field, he was a bit of a tit. And that's what kind of...
Tell us how you really feel.
That one. Well, he wasn't he? Let's not sugarcoat it. But I would go for a B. I think that's a solid B+, sorry.
B+. All right, go on, Gareth.
I think probably about a B-. I think we got usage out of most of those players. I think DJ Jones, he may have been redshirted his first year. I think Trent Taylor looked good, but again, couldn't stay fit. I think Colbert was the kind of guy who hung around the team, special teams, filled in, probably did quite a few snaps for Spoon, was a starter for 3-4 years and a middle starter, I guess. And Solomon Thomas, I think if we taken someone like Thomas at pick, 20 or something like that, you're quite comfortable with it. It's because it was that top 5 pick. And a lot, he's just got another big contract. John Kinlaw, you might get to, has got another big contract. That's often what you get out of a first round pick. You get a solid NFL player. And that's kind of what the average, I guess, of the first round picks is. You get a guy who can cut it in the NFL as a starter, but they may not necessarily be bothering the Pro Bowl selectors, but that's what you get. You get a player like Solomon Thomas. And so it's not bad. I think a B-. But I think George Kittle is a big part of that. And then when you look at George, you think that's probably he's worth at least 1 grade on his own. But I don't think it was a terrible draft. I think Foster didn't work out, but I like the idea at the time because they're building a team. Let's get these 2 guys on cost controlled, potentially 5-year contracts. It didn't work out, but it was the right idea. Because remember, it was only moving up from the second round. It was only moving up like 4 spaces or something. So it didn't cost the earth. I think it was the right idea to dip back into that first round and grab him. I think that was a good learning curve. But they could do it. Your first year, you get a bit of a pass, don't you? And so why not swing and go for what you need?
What about you, Najee, to answer your own question?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Lee and Gareth. I'm hovering between the B minus, B plus. I think it is a good draft, and we did make use of all these players. Obviously, apart from Joe Williams and and Peter Tamoipeonu. I can't say that. I'm sorry. But yeah, I think Trent Taylor played decent football for a while. DJ Jones played excellent football for a while. Even Adrian Corbett, I thought might just stick around with the team quite some time for a 7th round pick. It doesn't happen all the time. Obviously, you've got George Kittle, which is now just we can just give him the keys to the franchise. I think everybody would be happy with that. And then CJ Beathard, kind of like almost all of these players are still in the league, and I think that tells a lot about the quality of player you have, especially that far back. So yeah, and the Reuben Foster, we could have witnessed the biggest steal, even bigger than Patrick Mahomes at number 10, and it just panned out and wasn't a tit, as Lee put it mildly. But the only
You
thing
sure know that's going to be the AI video, Najee, that we clip after this and share it. That's going to be the first one. Sorry, I had to just get that out before.
It's all good. The thing, as you said, I think, Gareth, is just really important. Is like the learning curve in the first draft, and taking swing, and where can you take a swing, and how can you take a swing on what kind of player? Because obviously Foster and Joe Williams had the injury problem, and then I think we'll see soon that we've kind of moved on from this and taking risky player that might get injured. I'd B. I'm going to say B just to be in the middle. B, but so I think that's pretty good.
So I have shared our grading in the chat, and now there's not much in it between us before you say, Lee. The reason that I'm glad that the way we've graded it is, as I said at the start, there's 11 picks heading into this draft, and a few people are worried. Now, if you think if this was their first one, they've picked 10 picks, and as you've all said, it was a solid draft. If we get the same results from this draft with the team we've got now, it isn't going to be a bad outcome, is it really? I mean, obviously, we're going to get into the later drafts, but this was the first one. So that's all I wanted to say, Lee. But I've dropped our grades in the chat for everyone.
So before we move on to the next slide, I just want to explain these numbers over the... I think they're self-explanatory, but I'll explain them anyway. So these are the cumulative numbers for the 4 years we talked about, so 2017, 18, 19 and 20, for the college players we took from that particular college and the players we took, the positions, yeah?
Right, makes sense.
So I just thought that might be interesting because everybody just assumes that we absolutely load up on D-line. Wide receiver came out with the most.
Well, I mean, 6 D-line, 7 wide receiver. Yeah, makes sense. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to 2018? Look at that. Because some of those names are like, what? We drafted Richie James 7th round? I have no recollection whatsoever.
Poor Richie.
Poor Richie. He did as well. All right, who's going to take it away first? Who will talk about 2018?
Lee's got to talk about Mike McGlinchey, hasn't he? Lee's our all-line expert. Come on, Lee.
I kind of wanted Lee to do the next one. Is it the next one? Is it the next one?
No, it's not. It's next week.
How is it? Yeah.
It's next week, mate. I know what you're talking about. You think there's Sammy?
No, I'm thinking Wisnowski.
Oh, right. I think that was 2020. So that's
2019. That's 2019.
It's in tonight's show. It's in tonight's show, Najee. That's all you need to know. We've got that rabbit hole circled for about 5 minutes' time.
So Mike McGlinchey, again, this is another player that I literally saw a few months before we drafted him. Again, he played for Notre Dame, and I saw them at Stanford. And I remember seeing him and trying to think who else was who was the left tackle that night. I think that might have been Penny Sewell. Was Penny Sewell Notre Dame?
No, it's Oregon.
Right, there was a Notre Dame tackle that I liked better.
Was it the Colts guy? What's his name?
Yes, it might have been the Colts guy.
Quentin Nelson.
Ty will know
That's the guy, Quentin
He's
Nelson.
a guard.
Quentin
Guard.
Nelson.
He was a guard, was he? Right, Quentin
Well, he
Nelson.
still is, I think.
Yeah, that's who my draft crush was that year.
Yeah.
Because I think he went maybe 3 or 4 picks ahead of McGlinchey.
He did.
I think he went very high, didn't he? He has been
Yeah.
Pro Bowl every season.
Yeah, but to be honest, I mean, I was quite happy with Mike McGlinchey, and I would say throughout his career, I know he's had a lot of stick saying that he couldn't pass block, but obviously now that we've had McKivitz for the last 2-3 seasons, we know he can pass block.
Yeah.
Maybe he's not as good as like a top tackle, but he was certainly better than McKivitz. And then in the run game, he was unbelievable. I thought he was one of the better run blocking offensive linemen that we've had. So yeah, I mean, I was happy with that. I didn't mind the McGlinchey pick. I know. So this is when we were down in Manchester, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is when they had to kick us out of the bar because we were still in there 4:00 in the morning, and I was stood discussing this with Rich Darby, and he just hated the pick. He absolutely hated the pick, and I was explaining, look, I saw him play against Stanford, and he was really good. He was a really good player. Don't underestimate what he's going to do for our run game.
It's just
I think he turned out to be a good player for us.
I was just going to say, Najee, similar to the last conversation we've just had, he was solid and reliable, but not quite at that elite level you expect for a 9th pick. And obviously when the Broncos took him and gave him that big contract, we were never giving him that money. And it's just, when I was preparing this one, obviously the name that I think we all want to talk about is the pick in the 3rd round, and we're going to get to that. I think obviously it's only fair that you do that one, but exactly. I was going to say, Lee, that... Yeah, go on, Najee.
This is kind of why I wanted to do this exercise. A, because it's nice to see where we've been and how well we usually draft and coming up to the draft that's coming. But also, it kind of like puts everything in perspective into, and I think Gareth said it already, it's just, if you get a good pro out of your first pick, then you've hit. That's what you want. That's what first rounders are. They're not all going to be superstars. There's only ever going to be 1 or 2, and usually the superstars, as we've seen in the past 2 drafts, come kind of as a surprise of later rounds. Some players that just transition better to the NFL and have the luck of having the right coach and the right system, and they blossom into what they can be. Also, expectation is really hard to manage, especially when you're young, 22, 23 years old, and you come into this world, into the first round, and everybody expects you to be the best player at that position because you've been drafted in the first round, and all of a sudden you're not performing, and then you feel that pressure. I'm sure it's very difficult to handle when you're a kid. And so I quite like doing this and looking at it and going, McGlinchey was a good pick. I think it was. He played for us pretty much every game, and he played well enough that he got a massive contract in the NFL as his 2nd contract. Yes, we were not going to do that because, we had to go cheaper somewhere. But this is what you want out of your first rounders. And I think it's a nice lesson into what's coming in April. We might not get a superstar. We might not get a name that scream off the rooftop we're winning the Super Bowl right now. But if that guy is with us in 5 years and we have to decide whether we keep him or not, and he's played for us, I think that's a win. So, yeah.
That's what success looks like out of your first round pick. I think McGlinchey made a lot of sense at the time because it was he was being groomed to replace Joe Staley, and unfortunately he never turned into a player good enough to take over on the left hand side. I think we all assumed that was the plan as well. Whether he's unable to play on the left side and he's going to be strictly a right tackle. But he did. He looked good. I remember in rookie season we thought, okay, that's really good. He can push on from there. And the problem was he never really seemed to improve from that.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's some other good names on that list though.
Very good.
There is.
On my list.
Some disappointments. Yeah, Pettis was a huge disappointment, and I think our first sighting of the doghouse that Shanahan has for wide receivers in particular.
Yeah, That's right.
But I think Pettis is still hanging around the league and still
Yeah, it's signed with the Saints, I think. So
scoring 2 or 3 touchdowns a season. So
Yeah, normally against us.
I think
True.
what was interesting with the Pettis one, though, there's been a lot of hype about our special team signing, as Nadji said. And I think Pettis came into this he'd set an NCAA record with 9 career punt return touchdowns. So I think a lot of people were thinking special teams. He's going to look good on special teams. And he never quite lived up to his hype, did he? Like you said, Gary, I think he was at the
Yeah, he was
Saints last
scared to
time I
get
saw. Yeah,
he was
which,
scared to get hit. Yeah.
given that he was 6'1", 186 pounds, but I think he had 163 receptions in college, 2,000 receiving yards, 24 touchdowns. The numbers are there. I sent you all the
how
link
do you
earlier.
remember all this?
Well, I sent you all the
Michael.
link.
Michael is very good.
Michael is on fire this off-season. He's created a lot of chat in Discord, so it's good to have
Yeah,
him
yeah.
on a live.
So was that a reference to Nadji's cat, or was he calling them a bit of a...
Now, Gowland, we're still there. It's not after
my
dark
God.
yet.
He's on fire today.
We're going to get kicked off
owned
YouTube with
Cat.
these adverts, aren't we? When you create the AI generated clips, Lee, you've already got the TIT.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
But I mean,
Sorry, Gareth.
before we start talking about the big name on this draft, which to me makes it a success, Tavarius Moore, Kentavious Trey, DJ Reed, Marcel Harris, and Richie James all played a law game for us, and at a decent enough level that I remember those names, and they didn't disappear into oblivion.
They contributed.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
need to fill out your roster with non-superstars. Sorry, actually,
Absolutely.
but that's what I did. DJ Reed, obviously, it's a shame he went and excelled somewhere else.
He did,
And
yeah.
I think Julian Taylor might have. He's just one of those guys. He was injured, and then he came back. I think didn't he play a few snaps in a game, and then one of
Yeah,
those
that's
snaps
again.
was something in his leg, and then it just that guy that just had no luck.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Indeed.
So come on, Nadji.
I mean, Fred, right?
BYU's favourite. Come on. This is what you want to talk about out of this draft class.
So to me, if you look at it, as a whole between last year and this year, you find the best tight end in the league and the best linebacker in the league still to these days. That's obviously instant success for us. I actually thought we drafted him in the 5th. When I looked at it, I was like, oh, we got him in the 3rd. Absolute steal. He should have gone probably number 1 that year if you look at who's on all those lists. But yeah, having Fred and what he does to our team and what he has done to our team and what he's going to keep doing to our team, because there's clearly no chance he's going anywhere. But to me, that's a massive win. So I give this one, I would say a C+, because I think there's all the players, although they've played for us, I think I've had less of an impact than the previous draft. But yeah, I would give this one a C+. I think McGlinchey was kind of, we would have expected a little bit more from him, and obviously Pettis didn't pan out and all that kind of stuff, and then all the other players kind of played all right, but not enough to stay with us for a long time. So
what are you giving this one?
C+, I would say.
C+.
This one. Yeah.
I'm going to put it in the chat afterwards. Before we get the other chap's grades, you know what made the Warner pick even sweeter, Nadji? It was the 70th pick overall, and it was the pick we'd got from Chicago the year before.
The year before, that's right. That's right. Yeah,
So
yeah.
the Bears fans are like, God damn you 49ers, we could have had Mahomes the first year, we could have had Fred Warner. And obviously you can't think like that when you're looking back on the draft. But so Gareth, do you want to give us your grade on this overall draft?
I actually think this is slightly better than the previous year. I'm going to give this a B, and I think that's because I think McGlinchey we did play out his full 5 years, whereas I think we only gave Solomon Thomas the 4. I think Pettis, for all the problems that he had, he did complete season and a half maybe, did contribute. I think the Fred is very similar to Kittle. We've drafted an All-Pro, and that means that the draft's got to be fairly good. And I think there was just more contribution at the rest of them. Like Contavious Street hung around for years.
That's true, actually.
Fair enough, DJ Reed went, but again, Tavarius Moore, he hung around for years. I think Harris did as well, and Richie James had. I think Richie James might still be the most recent kick return touchdown scorer for us.
Yeah, Ty has just said that in the chat. And
Oh, really?
it's-
Oh, there we
it's the-
go.
It's
Yeah.
actually the last
And
one.
against Seattle.
Yeah.
Against Seattle, yeah, that's
Oh,
right,
oh,
that's right.
remember that? And he had that monster game when we lost all the receivers for COVID, and he had like 230
that's true, that's
yards on that
Oh, you've
dismal
changed my
game.
mind. You've changed my mind. I'm gonna
And
give
I
this
think-
a B plus now. I'm
I
gonna
think
have to.
he's gone, but he was again he was hanging around the league for a while, like fourth receiver at the Giants, I think. Maybe
which
only a
will-
couple of
will end
seasons
okay,
ago.
yeah.
So I think on balance, we got more out of that draft marginally. But yeah, there's one name in the previous draft and one name in this draft which are doing a lot of the heavy lifting for the B.
Yeah, as Ty said there, 2 straight drafts, 2 straight superstars. What about you, Lee? What are you giving this draft a grade?
I'm going with a B minus. I don't think it was as good as the draft the year before. I think Reed, we hardly saw him, but he turned out to be an excellent cornerback. Obviously, we had both Spoon and Richard Sherman playing, so it was difficult for him to break into the side. But the way he was playing in pre-season, he just deserved that chance. And I think he should have been given that chance. But it didn't happen. Marcel Harris, yes, we had some good games out of Marcel Harris. I liked him. Again, I think he was underutilised. I don't think he had a real run in the side. I think he suffered from the fact that Jimmy Ward was there, and everybody noticed Jimmy Ward more than anybody else. And that's not a bad way, Najee, because Jimmy Ward was an excellent player. Richie James, I think he was solid as a return guy. I think even as a wide receiver, he was a decent wide receiver. He gave us that little bit of speed, so we take the top off defenses. Dante Pettis, yeah, didn't like him from the day I saw him play. He just didn't like to get hit. He was just too scared. Tavarius Moore, again, somebody who I don't think really was given a chance, but he looked good whenever he did get some snaps. But yeah, the reason I'm getting a B minus is Fred Warner's on there. He's lifted this up from a C to a B minus.
I think Moore got an interception in the Super Bowl, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
See, for me,
Yeah.
I'm on the same page as Gareth. I'm going with a B plus. Like you said, Fred Warner's a standout star. McGlinchey was solid, and I just think that the players you've mentioned there, Lee, given to the roster from the year before, I think it showed that we were heading in the right direction, and that's why I'm grading this one a B plus. So I'm going to put that one in the chat for everybody. Do feel free to drop your grades in there. Before we move on, Richie James last played for the Chiefs in 2023. Thanks there, Ty. And I think
so
we
he's got-
maybe did Richie a
got a
disservice,
Super Bowl ring
Najee, when we did the shortest ever show, when we did 23 minutes. Maybe we didn't realise what we had on our hands, Gareth. Maybe we needed to show him some love. So it's
Yeah,
maybe
maybe.
a few years too late, Richie. I know you're watching, but there you go. You've got your flowers now. So moving swiftly on, we're heading into the 2019 draft class. So let's get these graphics up, Lee. I'm sure. I hope you've got a graphic for that one anyway.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go. I just need to
Who wants
switch
to
the
go
names
first?
off on the bottom.
You like talking D-line. Go on, Gareth.
Well, I think Nick Bosa was a bit of a no-brainer, wasn't he? If the Cardinals didn't take him with number 1, we were going to take him at number 2. I think Bosa's become more difficult to evaluate. I think since he's been paid, is every time I look at sack leaders over the last sort of 2 years or 5 years, or all these top performing defensive stars, Bosa's name is never on them, and we're paying him like a guy who should be. He needs to get back the form that he showed, I think, in his third year, was it? Because I think his second year was injured. I think good memories of him in this year. This was obviously the Super Bowl run year. We'd kept his powder dry, and then he had that game against the Browns. I think about week 5, week 6. I think it was a Monday night,
It's Baker.
and that was where Bosa, that's the one, broke out, and Baker. So yeah, I mean, we weren't going to pass up on Nick Bosa, and I think the rest. I think Jalen Hurd was always a huge disappointment. He had that one really good pre-season game where I think he scored a couple of touchdowns, and we thought, wow, we've got something. And just again,
Against Dallas, right? Was it against Dallas?
cannot, yeah, possibly cannot stay fit. Obviously, it's the draft is all about the guy in the 4th round there.
Boy,
So hand over to Lee.
I was going to say,
Boy,
Gareth,
is it.
seamless. You handed that over with the one pick that Lee wanted to talk about. Looking at him, I can see him checking his note and he's getting ready. Oh, he's teasing.
man.
He's teasing.
He is.
He just
So-
doesn't want to talk about it.
See, Nadji, I wasn't sure who you were going to talk about tonight on this particular draft class, but I thought Dre Greenlaw, you have obviously been our resident linebacker expert, and to see that we got him with pick 148, and I forgot he was in this kind of draft class because I wasn't sure which year, I was doing the homework, but seeing his name on there with Bosa and Debo and Mitch, you think, crikey, this draft class, for people that contributed, I mean, but Dre Greenlaw, I thought you'd want to talk about that one.
Yeah, we'll talk about this more when we do the grading. But yeah, I mean Dre, and especially with the news coming out that we did try out our hardest and our hardest to keep him in the building, and it looks like we just got outbid, and he clearly wanted something different, and that's why he went. But I think we were very, very close to keeping him around. So yeah, to me, this whole draft, as much I agree with you, Gareth. I think Nick Bosa is very hard to evaluate, even though his pressure rate is high. We would like him to be on the stat sheet and in the defensive MVP conversation. Game after game after game, just like TJ Watt can do or Myles Garrett can do, despite being triple team, double team, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Dre, I mean, the guy just came out of nowhere, 5th round out of Arkansas, which is an SEC team, and it's tough down there, but it's not like Alabama or Georgia. And just as soon as he hit the field, like you could tell the difference, the speed, the energy, the anger, the drive to play at the highest level possible and get penalized for it pretty much every single game. I'm pretty sure the first season we were like, what is this guy doing? He's crazy. And then we kind of took it on board and we're like, this is Dre, this is what he's going to do. And we love him for it. So yeah, I mean, Dre Greenlaw for me is the highlight of that draft because, yes, Debo is on it, but Debo is the 2nd round and it's number 36. It's really high in the 2nd round. So you can't expect somebody to pick this high to be good. Dre was kind of like out of nowhere. So
do you know what's interesting with the Greenlaw pick as well? When I was doing my homework, we were actually down to pick at 2-1-2, and we traded Dakota Watson and pick 2-1-2 to the Broncos for pick 148. And then now again, I'm playing devil's advocate in hindsight, but it's just funny when I saw that asterisk and I thought, how ironic that we picked him at 148, and that was technically where I was supposed to pick.
Yeah, so we traded up to get him. That's clearly we're quite high on him, and yeah, rightfully so. Go on, Lee. You've been waiting all this time to talk about Mitch.
Yeah, I mean, Mitch taking a punter in the 4th round, crazy, absolutely crazy. But to be fair to him, for the first few seasons, he was a good punter, and then he just seems to have lost his way. The last couple of seasons.
What? What are
remind
you
us.
watching?
Yeah,
Do you not think
remind
so?
us what you said this big.
I think his accuracy's been pretty poor.
But he's good. He's a good punter. He's probably too much money now.
What did Lee say about it, Nadji? I think you've got a better memory than the other three of us. Wasn't there something he said?
I said it was the worst pick in the history of the NFL. I think.
I think so. Which I think was harsh at the time. It was.
That's
He was.
But obviously that was overtaken once we took Jake Moody, another kicker.
He was really good last year before he was injured. Wisnowski, really good stat, and people don't return on him because of the hang time. You see, Lee, you've got to get into your punter terminology.
He's a very good punter. And that run.
So,
do you remember that run last year? Come on.
Yeah, that was fun.
He got called back.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
No one else.
So as far as Nick Bosa is concerned, I don't think there's a 49ers fan out there who didn't want us to take Nick Bosa.
Actually,
I know there's quite a few who was worried about injuries.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know there's quite
I
a few
remember-
worried about injuries.
I wanted Quinn Williams more than Nick Bosa. It was
Yeah.
more of a character
Ooh.
thing, and from what I can remember, the Ohio State defense back then had Chase Young, and that defense was flying. They were very, very good, and I was kind of afraid that it was more sum of all the parts rather than just him being really good. Obviously, I was a bit wrong. He is very good, but yeah, I kind of wanted Quinn Williams. Just is that the year we lost Buckner to?
No,
No,
No.
he played
It was the year
alongside
after.
Buckner and D Ford, didn't he? They
Right,
brought
yeah.
him
Oh,
in,
yeah,
and
that's
that
right.
had
The
that
year
stellar
That is
defensive line.
But I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it made sense to have the end rather than the tackle.
I mean,
but, yeah.
this draft could have been an absolute beaut of a draft had Jalen Hurd not been
Yeah.
made of glass.
Yeah.
Because when he did play, he looked excellent,
It did.
but that was few and far between. In fact, I think it was only in pre-season.
Yeah, it never played.
Pre-season was enough for him, and then he got injured every year. I think we kept him for 3-4 years
Yeah,
before we eventually cut him loose.
Yeah.
And you
Which
look at
I
the players
think
we've got now.
tells a lot about what we thought he could have been.
Eggs.
With the fact
Well,
that
yeah, I
he's
mean,
been
the
that
potential
long.
was there.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
could see the potential was there. And that, alongside Deebo Samuel, Nick Bosa, Wisnowski, Greenlaw, that'd have been a hell of a draft.
I mean, even
That'd
Caden
have
Smith.
been
I
a
know.
cracking draft.
You know, you look at the other three name on this list. Caden Smith and Justin Scoll actually played some games for a few years.
Yeah.
Caden Smith, not really with us, with the Giants, but even Tim Harris played a little bit of corner. You know, it's a pretty good draft, and it's a smaller draft as well. I don't know why we
traded a couple of picks out. So to get Wisnowski, we traded pick 104 to the Bengals for picks 110, 183, and 198. And then obviously we traded with the Broncos. And it was just weird when I was like you said, and I thought this name isn't as long. But again, if you think back at the way the team was, we didn't need to take all 10. We could repackage some of those picks. And I think, isn't this the year we gave Washington a couple of picks for Trent Williams?
Yeah, I was thinking now. Yeah, is it?
No, this was
No, that was the
2019
year after.
Super Bowl run. So that
the
was
year
with
after.
That was Joe Staley's.
That was Joe.
Yeah.
Maybe the year
It was the year after.
So Michael has jumped in and given us his grade. So he's gone for an A-. So I'll let you go first, Gareth. Do you want to give a grade on this draft, just so I can put it in the chat?
I think it's a B. It's a B because I think because we were picking second, you should get good players when you're picking second in the first round and second in the second round. So
B.
I think it's a B because we had higher draft picks.
Fair.
Come on then, Nadji. You've got
I'm
your hands
giving
in
it
the
A.
air.
I'm giving it A+. You find 4 starters, for sure starters, in a draft, and
Yeah, true.
contributors,
That's
apart
true.
from the Jalen Hurd, which, again, I think we all agree that if Jalen Hurd wasn't made out of, I don't know if it was glass, or it was paper mache, this draft would have been absolutely legendary. And, you know, you find Dre and Debo and Nick Bosa, all pro ballers. Debo changed the league as soon as he got going. Let's not forget that Debo was amazing and he's one of one. And it probably still is amazing. I hope for the Commanders. Yeah, I'm giving this an A+. This is what you want out of your draft. 4 starters.
What about you, Lee? What are you giving this
Yeah,
one?
so I'm very similar to Nadji, but I'm in between Nadji and Michael. I'm giving this an A, a straight A, this one, purely because Bosa, Debo and Greenlaw have just delivered to such a high standard consistently, and I think that deserves an A. To get 3 players like that in one draft.
Yeah. This was the first draft that I really invested in, and I didn't know what the Senior Bowl was, but all these content creators were talking about the Senior Bowl, and I fell in love with
It's for all of us
there.
old folk.
Yeah, but that's where the Niners, where Shanahan and his coaching staff were going down to mobile, and they were coaching, and apparently that's where Debo really stood out. And I'd heard this name, and I started watching the game tape. And as you said, Nadji, number 19 Debo was special. And I did a piece for the Washington Commanders UK fan group. They sent me some questions and asked me to obviously talk about Debo, so I fired that across. But I'm going to give this one an A. I'm going to agree with Lee. I think that, as you said there, we found Bosa, Samuel, both were franchise players, foundation of our defence and offence, and this class turned out to be a bit of a home run for Kyle and John. So I'm giving this one an A, and I will put that in the chat. Hey, we're firing through these, chaps. Not too many rabbit holes. I've got to say, well done so far. This was the one I was worried the Mitch Wisnowski was going to go. So, moving swiftly on, Lee, because you're helping me with the 2020 class. So here we go. So who wants to kick this one off, chaps?
I'll go
I'll
first.
go with this one.
No, yeah. Go on.
Yeah. So I actually wanted Yvonne Kinlaw, so that there was two different players who we could have taken. The other guy went to the Panthers, and I can't remember his name.
Derek
Well,
Brown.
that was out here. I'm sure it began with the Derek Brown. That's it, Derek Brown. So it was either Derek Brown or Yvonne Kinlaw, and I wanted Yvonne Kinlaw because I thought on tape he looked the better prospect. And I think for the first 4 seasons, for the first 3 seasons he played for us, he definitely proved me wrong. Well, that last
he didn't
season,
really play, to be fair. He was injured all the
well,
time.
that's how he proved us wrong. I mean, the last season he pulled it round, and I thought he was a cracking run stopper.
Yeah.
On the defensive line. But yeah, I mean, he turned out to be a bit of a disappointment, which is sad. So I can't really see that as a successful pick at the end of the day. But then we ended up coming back into the first round, and this is the guy I wanted us to take. Not the Kinlaw spot, but I wanted us to get Brandon Ayuk. And I thought we might have been able to get him about 33, 34. So I was quite surprised when we moved up this high to take him. And I can't remember looking back on that draft whether or not there was anybody else interested in taking Ayuk. But I am glad that we obviously moved up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this was the draft where Justin Jefferson and Jalen Reagor. There was a ton of wide receiver that went off.
There was,
really early. So it was kind of like, Henry Ruggs came off the board, and there was a lot of.
Yeah.
But I think we
Jerry
thought
Jeudy.
the Packers were going to take him, and they took Jordan Love after.
Actually, that's right, because the Packers had picked 26, didn't they?
Yeah. So
26
so I
or
think
27,
that's exactly
something like
why
that.
we went
Yeah.
there and took Ayuk. It wouldn't surprise me if the Packers would have tried and trade back into. So they would have taken Ayuk at 26 and then maybe trade back to get Jordan Love later in a second or something. It was a weird draft. Same again, 5 picks. We must have traded away a ton.
Yeah, this is the one that we gave the picks away for Williams. So just to clarify for people watching, we gave 1, 5, 6 out of this year's draft, and we drafted the 3rd round pick for 2021 for Trent Williams. Absolute steal, given the player Trent Williams was. We traded 31, 117, and 176 to the Vikings to jump up to pick number 25 to get Ayuk, as you said, Lee. And before we move off the rabbit hole, you robbing Gareth of one of his moments. Kinlaw. Gareth loves a big man pick 6. He wasn't the draft pick, but we all remember cheering that touchdown, Lee. We've got to give Kinlaw his props for that. So sorry, buddy, before I forgot.
Yeah, no problem. What I was about to say is, if you look on the balance of the picks we did take, so we only took 5 picks, every single one of those has been a starter at one point or another. Charlie Warner started when there's been two tight ends in there, but he has been a starter, and he was a very good player. I would even say he was better than Aaron Donald's daddy, Ross Dwelly.
Yeah.
But I think this has been a decent draft as far as that's concerned. The value getting starters out of it.
We even traded Matt Breeder to the Dolphins for pick 153, which turned into Colton McKivitz. We traded picks number 13 and 245 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for picks 14 and 117. So this was the draft where a lot of people were saying there was going to be a lot of movement up and down. And like you said, Lee, this was a solid draft. So are we at that stage yet to give it a grade? Or do you want to talk a little bit more about it? Just so I can start typing it in the chat.
If Gav has got some faults about it, go on.
No, targeted. I think we can see those names. All those names have been, well, other than Charlie Warner, I think all those names have been starters on this starting choice for several years. Obviously, it took Jennings a couple of years to get going. I think Warner again didn't do much, perhaps in his first year, but he was the second tight end onto the field, and obviously Colton McKivitz has become a starter. I think that's been a pretty good draft. We know Ayuk, first round pick, you give him a second contract to. I think that followed up from Bosa, which was the other first round pick we gave a second contract to. And we've got some of these guys. I know we're getting closer to current, but some of these guys are obviously still on the team. So I think that's been a really good draft. I think from what you said on the last draft, I possibly was a bit harsh on B. I would have probably put the previous at a B plus, and I would go the same for this.
So you're going to B plus. I will put your marks on there now.
Yeah.
So Nadji, going to come to you just because I've typed your name in. So you give us your grade, then I'll come to Lee after that.
I agree. I think this is solid B plus, especially if you consider that one of those picks is Trent Williams, essentially, which we all know what Trent can do and who he is now. But if you just look at the whole picture and you see John Jennings and Brandon Ayuk and the two players they have become, and I know there's a lot of pressure on Brandon Ayuk to come back healthy and deliver on his big contract that he signed. But I mean, I'm just happy for JJ on this. I just love JJ so much. I'm glad we took him. And I remember seeing the name Seven France, like, who's this guy? And he didn't play for a year and came in, and we see what he did last year. So I think it is a good draft. Charlie Warner started 16 games for the Falcons. He's a good pro, it's not the Kittle and Kelsey type tight end. It's the old school tight end blocking kind of thing, more lineman than tight end, but. Yeah, so Colton McKivitz is our starting right tackle, so it's a good draft.
Fifth round pick.
Yeah,
get starting player for 2 years.
So
this is a good draft. Like, hardly missed it. I think Kinlaw, it's just a health issue. The guy got a huge contract to go and play this year, and we'll see what that pans out. But you don't give that much money for a guy on his second, third contract, I would say, if he doesn't play well at some point or does do something for your team. So, I think that's a solid draft. B plus, just because it's a smaller sample size. We'll have liked maybe more picks in there.
So I forgot to mention as well that this was the same draft that we gave up picks 95 and 137 for Sanders, according to what I've read.
Yeah,
and we traded pick number 63 in exchange for D Ford in 2019. So there was a lot of stuff going on, but I'm going to give this one a B. Purely because Kinlaw didn't live up to those expectations. Ayuk, Jennings, both solid and make this class respectable. For me, like you said, Jennings has just grown. You're getting that production that you from a 7th round pick. He was our best player last year. So I'm going for a B. So let's see, Lee. We've got a B plus, a B plus, a B. What are you going with this one, Lee?
So are we including both Sanders and Trent Williams in this?
You can't not, because otherwise you're just judging 5 players versus 10 or 11 players in the draft. So I think you kind of have to take in consideration.
You can do whatever you want, Lee.
I mean, ultimately.
Yeah, just what do you think?
Well, let's forget about Samuels, because we only had him 6 months.
Sanders, yeah.
Yeah, Sanders even. We only had him 6 months. But Trent Williams, you put Trent Williams in there.
Yeah.
Then, say that, just for the record, a little rabbit hole, right? But he was open. He was open. 6 months, but if you catch that ball, he was open.
Oh, he's
Somebody overthrew
him. Overthrew it.
So.
Why, Nadji? Why?
Well, let's face it, that's not why we lost that Super Bowl. The defense gave up at the start of the fourth quarter.
Right.
They'd already thought they'd won it after that interception. They got too cocky.
I like what Nadji's done there. He thought, we haven't had enough rabbit holes in there. I'm just going to throw one in there now before Lee gives his draft grade. But
from downtown.
I'm going to go for a B plus.
B plus. Only me let it down there. That would have been interesting if we'd all done that. So Ty Alston's put in the chat there that this was a good draft. So let's have a little look. Well, I cannot believe we've actually got through all the drafts
in an hour.
So we've got a little bit of time to talk about it because on my note it does say any final thoughts. But I know we've kind of rushed through these, but I'm hoping the people watching are feeling a little better that we've gone through this draft and analysed some of the picks. Because, you know, you look at some of the names. I mean, I think you titled the thumbnail, Lee, we had to pick our greatest pick out of the Shanahan Lynch
we
era.
didn't
But I
have to pick
thought...
our
Well,
greatest
we could
pick.
we could do that next week when we've reviewed the next 4, I think. And see,
Well, in case not everybody's here, I was going to put you on the spot and think, out of the ones we've chatted about tonight, I want you to pick one.
Fred Warner.
There you go, Lee. Nice, well played.
Warner.
Gareth, what about you?
Fred Warner. He edges Kittle.
He does.
yeah.
Just
I'm gonna-
into it. Yeah. But go on, actually. Go on.
I'm gonna say George, just because it's not just the player, it's also the character and the man and everything it brings to the team as well as. And somebody's got to stick up for George. Come on, he's a MVP and all that. Come on, George. For sure.
Yeah, I was Club 85 all day long. As soon as I seen that in the notes earlier, I thought, as much as I love Fred,
I mean,
but,
it's close. It's
But it's
so
it's
close.
it's that.
Yeah.
oh,
it's
like
yeah.
There's no right. If whichever one of those two you choose, I don't think there's a right or wrong, because and out of that lot, I think it's those two, and then there's
Completely
probably
agree, Gareth.
a big
But
gap.
Paul and Nadji's wrong.
Yeah, true. But I think, it's between those two, and then there's a gap between. It's probably maybe Ayuk, Bosa, Dre, perhaps Jennings, even.
Yeah,
Wish,
yeah.
Wishnowski, obviously.
I mean, Wish. Should have said Wish. Damn it.
I know. I was thinking someone was going to throw a curveball in there, but when you talk about rabbit holes, because we're in the off season, I don't know if you chaps have been watching non-football related programs, but we watched the documentary on Disney Plus, the Ruby Frankie story, some story in America, and the guy had a BYU hat on, and straight away I said what university it was. Tracy was like, "How do you know that?" Fred Warner. So when I was preparing for tonight, she was like, "You always have to make everything about the 49ers." I was like, "Well, you know, if you know, you know."
Yeah.
So here's an interesting fact about BYU. When you fly to San Francisco from the UK, you fly right over the top of BYU Stadium. If you're on the left-hand side of the plane, you can see the stadium.
Well, what I did want to ask is before we finished off, so the pro days are in full swing. And Najee, Oregon, had their pro day, and the Niners were well represented, which I thought Lee would love to hear. So there was a lot of names on there, Najee. So putting you on the spot, if there was only one that you could guarantee from this year's draft class, because I mean, I know Chris would upset you with some shares at Justin Herbert, which I saw late last night. So Chris, very thin ice. You're lucky Najee was busy. But out of all the prospects that I've got listed, if you could only have one from Oregon, who are you going for and why?
I think it's Tez Johnson. From all the games that I've watched, he's always been good. He never has a bad game. He's a bit like JJ. He's a fighter. He will just work really hard. And we did lose one wide receiver, so I think we do need one more. And we probably can get him maybe in the third, fourth, depending how the draft goes. So I think I'd love to see Tez. I think he'll be a good pro. I think he'll be a good player. He'll stick around for quite some time. I'm not sure the other players might have the same ceiling and the same floor as he does. I'd like to see Tez. That'll be cool.
So Lee, what did you make of the Niners being well represented at Oregon's pro day?
I mean,
you good to see?
Before
like
Lee
I've
says
just said,
anything,
I mean,
he's just got a lot of good players.
yeah, Oregon's got a lot of good players.
I know, but if
there's a few
Najee
of them
said
that I've
that, you might
taken
not have
time and time
accepted
again.
it. That's why I
Yeah, in
said
the
it, because if
mock drafts.
Najee said it, you'd be like, ah.
Well, you know,
No,
they
no,
went
they do.
16-0 before, 12-0 before they lost to Ohio State in the playoffs. So they're a good team. They've got good players.
So how are you feeling, Gareth, after we've whizzed through all those draft classes? Because as I said at the start of the show, some of the faithful were feeling nervous that we've got 11 picks to fill some of the holes on this roster. After doing this today, I felt better already, and we haven't even looked at the rest of the draft classes, which Lee the thumbnail, Nadji, that you're alluding to, next week's show is going to be the easiest thumbnail ever. But Martin Hughes has his own ideas, Lee. I'll let him explain them to you. It's nothing to do with Sammy Womack. That's all I'm going to say. But buckle up, people, because next week's show could be a long one, purely because of pick 172.
No, I'm feeling all right about it. I think we've drafted well. I think with every draft, you can point at the busts and say Shanahan, Lynch, and their coaches don't know what they're doing. But then you've got to wheel out George Kittle and Fred Warner, and there's 31 other teams in the league who regret not taking those guys in the first round. And it's the same with every team. Every team that picks up late round steals and first round busts. It's a bit like, it's a crapshoot, or it's a bit like playing poker. You're not going to get which cards you're going to get. You just play them to try and win more than you lose. And I think that's what we do on the draft. We've hit more than we've missed, and the hits have been really good. And I think a lot of the misses have been. We haven't. Well, we'll perhaps get to those. I think Trey Lance is the one that said that's a really bad miss. But some of the others, even like Reuben Foster, it's kind of like, well, it's not like we gave away 2 first round picks for a guy like that. So I'm happy with how we've drafted, and I think while our grades might not totally reflect it, I think we've drafted better. And I think one good thing about having such a good turnover this year is it means we're open in the draft. But I don't think we're going into the draft with any glaring needs. Defensive line, there's a lot of places we need to shore up. But the fact of the matter is we could field the team today. And I think that's what you need to go into the draft without being desperate, because that's when you make bad decisions and you overreach because suddenly there's only 2 tackles that we like and one of them's just gone. So suddenly you panic and you overpay for a guy who's just not that good because you've been left with that need. So I'm very happy about the way the off season is going. It's interesting to see the panic, and then I've looked at a lot of post free agency power rankings, and the Niners seem to have edged up, because everyone's like, actually, look at what they've still got left, and they haven't just chained themselves to bad contracts. So, yeah, I'm feeling good.
No, I mean, one of the names I thought you were going to mention, Nadji, I've seen creeping up. A lot of people want us to take a D lineman at 11. And one of your Oregon players, is it Derek Harmon? Leader at Oregon, perfect fit. Now, this is the time of year where I know nothing about college football. I'm watching the content creators. I haven't done any mock drafts yet, and I've admitted that. Now, before we went live, chaps, Gowland dropped a bombshell that I don't think any of our viewers would believe. How many mock drafts did you say you had done, Lee? Now that you're working, be truthful what you told us off air.
In the last 7 weeks, I said I hadn't done a single mock draft. But then I remembered I have actually done quite a few mock drafts. It's just that those 7 weeks have flown over. It doesn't feel as though I've done any. Yeah. But I did them at the end of the combine. I did them at the end, I think, day 2 or day 3 in free agency, just to see how the values had changed and who was taking what. So, yes, I did do a lot more than what I thought I had.
I think we've got a really interesting point as well. And I think the draft... It's a bit uncertain. Did you see the thing about it's the first time in years every team has actually just got their own first round pick? And I think there's a lot.
Really?
Yeah. No, everybody has got the pick that they should be allocated with from the previous season. So there's nothing's been swapped out. It might move around. I do wonder if some people don't like the quarterbacks. There's some teams picking around 18 to 20s who probably aren't going to move up into the top 10 to get a quarterback. But if they start to slip and people don't want them, maybe something around 11, I can see it being potentially a valuable pick for us to trade back down. And I think because we could take edge, we could take D-line, we could take offensive line, and I think I'll be happy with any of those guys. I think somewhere around maybe 18 to 22 might be a great spot where we can be very happy with who we pick. And that, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, if we can trade down twice from 11 and end up at somewhere like 22, but then end up also with an additional two second round picks.
Yeah.
yeah,
or first.
then I'd be over the moon with that.
I mean, touching upon what Gareth said earlier before we finish off, David Lombardi tweeted out earlier that the Niners apparently have the third best odds to win the NFC behind Detroit, Philly, but ahead of Washington, Green Bay. And given that some people are saying, like Richie there, that D-line is a glaring hole. But you're right, I don't think we've got any urgent needs. I'm looking forward to the draft. The content creators that are doing their shows, Najee, you'll be delighted to hear that. I just jump in the chat and drop this message. I think Chapman is sick of seeing this. But talking about content creators, Wayne Breezy will be joining Ty Alston and Jess on
nice.
the East Coast Red and Gold show. I think it's on at midnight tonight, our time. So if you like me, save that and watch that back. But before we finish off, chaps, this has been a blast. I mean, doing my homework for this one today was good. Any final thoughts? So I'll go over to you firstly. Sorry,
no,
Gareth.
I mean, you kind of covered it before. I'm fairly happy going into this draft. In fact, I'm really excited going into this draft. I think it's quite a deep draft at positions that we need, and that's definitely the D-line. I feel the D-line edge, even linebacker. So I'm happy that we've got, 10 picks there, and I think we're in a strong position to trade back and multiply those picks and potentially have a season-changing draft.
Go on, Gareth. I interrupted you. You were about to say something. Sorry.
We haven't. I haven't really discussed with Najee how he feels about driving Jordan Mason out of the team.
No.
It's your Cam Scatterboo, no matter what. That's it. Is Shanny's like, I hear you, buddy, but someone's got to go, and that's the price for Cam.
Maybe we can talk about it because we're coming to an hour and 10 now. So talk about it next week. But I'm not happy about it. I understand why we did it, and also it's a big insight.
I don't think we got a lot
things of it.
Yeah.
Of him and why he didn't play whilst we were screaming for it. But yeah, in terms of I feel good. I think watching all these drafts, the next four are a bit more rough, but I think this first four and the way we approach it and the way we've evolved into doing stuff as well, I think we can look at that in the next four. I feel pretty confident that we will at least have, B is pretty good for a draft. There's no E, there's no F, there's no D in those drafts in terms of grading, and that's not where you want to be. I mean, the next one might be a bit worse, but when you can consistently draft well, and I think it's been proven we've done now, I'm full confident that with 11 picks, there's bound to be, I would say, 3 or 4, maybe 5 of these guys that are going to be with us for a long time, and maybe a new superstar, maybe, hopefully, a George Kittle or Fred Warner that we can find. It'll be Cam Scatterby. And
I was trying to give Najee some time to grieve, Gareth, but you just went straight in there and ripped off the band-aid. I mean, when we kind of agreed that contract with him and the second round tender, I'd heard, I think it was Matt Miyoko or Brad Graham said earlier today, that the Niners always want to win when it comes to a trade. So we might not have got much back for Mason, but it's his contract that we've got off the books. And I think there's a lot of talk that Garendo fits the system a little bit better than Najee. He's more of a pass catching back and CMC coming back. But as I tweeted out, Najee, we will always have the Discord memories. So, 24, he's going to rip it up at the Vikings. But it's weird for Niners fans because we've always known this time was coming when we were going to be saying goodbye to players. And now it's happening. And I didn't want to go down the Jordan Mason rabbit hole, Gareth. I thought Najee was a little bit fragile.
Yeah,
but,
the juice news helped a lot to make it a lot smoother. But I'm not happy about it. We lost RB1.
Interestingly enough, one of Tracy's colleagues is a Chiefs fan. I know. But she sent Tracy a text, Najee, asking me to explain why Juice had left the Niners because she was a bit shocked. So Tracy sent me that text at work, and I was like, the text I've been waiting for. Niners talk from Tracy. So I sent this big monologue back, and then the next day we re-signed him. So I was like, that message I've just sent you, it doesn't mean anything. But that is the off-season. We will be back next week. As we said, we will be looking at the next 4 drafts. I don't think all 4 of us are here, because I think you're away, aren't you, Gareth?
I am. Holidays.
So we may have to draft a special guest in. There is a few people on the waiting list, so keep those notifications switched on. Thank you to everyone in the chat who joined us. As we said at the start, please do drop us a like, subscribe to the channel, tell all your friends about us. But we will be back, and all that is left for me to say is trust the process and go Niners.
Go Niners.
Cam's Cataboo no matter what.
Bang, bang, there the gang.
We love the San Francisco 49ers deep in our heart. Like Joe Montana in the corner, G. Clark, Garrison Hurst.